Friendship doesn't turn into love slowly for a man, it flips. One moment you're familiar, safe, predictable, and next you're replaceable. For him, the shift happens when emotional comfort meets emotional dependence. You stop being just the person he talks to and become the person he needs to talk to. That's the moment his nervous system rewires. He starts checking in more, he notices who else is around you. Your absence feels louder than your presence ever did. This isn't about physical attraction appearing overnight. It's about realization. He recognizes that you understand him without explanation, that your approval suddenly matters, and that losing you would hurt more than risking the friendship. Men don't fall in love because of history alone. They fall in love when they see a future forming without their permission. And when friendship turns into love for him, it's not casual, it's decisive. Because once he crosses that line emotionally, he's no longer choosing comfort, he's choosing courage. The emotional shift from friendship to love begins with awareness, not action. For a man, this moment is rarely dramatic on the outside, but internally it is profound. It starts when emotional comfort quietly turns into emotional reliance. At first, he enjoys talking to you because it feels easy. There is no pressure, no performance, no need to impress. Over time, that ease becomes something deeper, regulation. Your presence calms him, your reactions matter, and your understanding feels stabilizing. This is the point where the emotional role you play in his life changes, even if he hasn't named it yet. What makes this shift powerful is that it happens subconsciously. He doesn't wake up one day deciding to fall for you. Instead, his mind begins to associate you with safety, clarity, and relief. When something good happens, you are the first person he wants to tell. When something stressful happens, you are the person who helps him make sense of it. This repeated emotional pattern trains his brain to link you with emotional reward. Attraction grows not from excitement alone, but from consistency. As this awareness deepens, he starts noticing your absence more than your presence. Silence from you feels unfamiliar. A delayed reply disrupts his mood. This isn't insecurity, it's attachment forming. You've moved from being optional to being integrated into his emotional routine. At this stage, many men experience confusion because friendship feels safe and defined while love introduces risk. The awareness creates internal tension. He realizes that what he feels is no longer neutral, but he may resist acknowledging it. This is also where perception changes. He begins to see you differently, not because you've changed, but because his emotional lens has. Small traits stand out more, your opinions carry weight, your approval feels validating in a way it didn't before. Even moments of disagreement matter more, because now there is something to lose. This heightened awareness is a key indicator that the emotional boundary of friendship has already been crossed internally. This shift does not depend on physical attraction suddenly appearing. Physical attraction may already exist or may grow later, but the emotional shift is the foundation. It's the realization that you are not easily replaceable. Other friendships don't offer the same emotional resonance. He may still call it friendship out loud, but internally he's beginning to protect the connection, prioritize it, and imagine its continuity. This awareness is the true beginning of love for him. Not the confession, not the gesture, not the label, but the quiet understanding that you matter differently. Once this realization settles, going back to emotional neutrality is nearly impossible. Friendship, at that point, is no longer just friendship. It's the emotional ground from which love inevitably grows. When a man begins to feel more than friendship, his behavior changes before his words ever do. These shifts are subtle, often unconscious, but deeply revealing. He may not announce his feelings, yet his actions start communicating a different level of investment. What once felt casual becomes intentional. He pays closer attention, not just to what you say, but to how you say it. He remembers details he never used to store, because now they matter emotionally, not just intellectually. One of the earliest behavioral changes is priority. He makes time without needing a reason. Conversations stretch longer than planned. Check-ins happen without a practical purpose. This isn't obligation, it's instinct. You begin to occupy mental space even when you're not present. He starts aligning his schedule, mood, and energy around moments of connection with you, often without realizing he's doing it. Another key signal is protection. He becomes more aware of how other situations affect you. Not in a controlling way, but in a quietly attentive one. If something bothers you, it bothers him. If someone disrespects you, he feels it personally. This is a behavioral shift from companion to emotional ally. Friendship allows concern, emerging love introduces responsibility. His communication style also evolves. He becomes more emotionally expressive, even if he isn't naturally verbal. He shares thoughts he usually keeps private, fears, uncertainties, moments of self-doubt. This isn't accidental. Emotional disclosure is a form of trust, and trust is the bridge between friendship and love. When he starts letting you see unpolished parts of himself, it's because your opinion has gained emotional weight. Jealousy in mild and often disguised forms can also appear. He may ask questions that seem casual but carry emotional curiosity about your connections with others. He notices changes in your availability. This isn't possessiveness yet, it's awareness paired with concern. His emotional radar is tuned in because the relationship now feels personally significant. There is also a shift in how he supports you. He doesn't just listen, he engages. He offers solutions, encouragement, and follow through. He wants to be useful in your life, not just present in it. This reflects an internal desire to matter, to contribute to your well-being in a meaningful way. Perhaps the most telling behavioral tell is consistency. Effort doesn't spike and disappear, it stabilizes. He shows up reliably, emotionally and practically. Love, in formation, seeks security, not excitement alone. Even when things are calm, his presence remains steady. These behavioral changes aren't strategic, they're reflexive. A man doesn't decide to behave this way to signal interest. His nervous system adjusts first and behavior follows. By the time these signs appear, the emotional shift has already happened internally. The behavior is simply the evidence of a deeper truth. Friendship has evolved into something that now carries emotional risk, value, and desire. When emotional attraction emerges from friendship, many men experience an internal struggle before they ever express interest. This conflict isn't about uncertainty over feelings, it's about the consequences of those feelings. Friendship represents safety, predictability, and low risk. Love introduces vulnerability, potential rejection, and the possibility of losing the connection entirely. For a man, this creates a mental tug of war between desire and self-protection. At this stage, he is often fully aware that his feelings have shifted, but awareness doesn't immediately lead to action. Instead, he may attempt to suppress or rationalize what he's feeling. He might tell himself that he's misreading the situation, that it's just comfort, or that it's not worth complicating something that already works. This resistance is not emotional immaturity, it's risk assessment. He is weighing emotional reward against emotional loss. This conflict intensifies because friendship already satisfies many emotional needs. He gets companionship, understanding, and connection without having to expose himself fully. Admitting romantic feelings threatens that balance. If he speaks and the feelings aren't mutual, he risks embarrassment and distance. If they are mutual, he risks responsibility and emotional exposure. Either outcome requires courage, and hesitation is often a sign that the feelings matter deeply. During this phase, his behavior may appear inconsistent. He may lean in emotionally, then pull back. He may create distance, then re-engage. This isn't manipulation, it's internal negotiation. He is trying to regain emotional neutrality while simultaneously being drawn closer. The push-pull dynamic reflects an attempt to control feelings that are already influencing him. Fear of change plays a major role here. Friendship has defined rules, love does not. Love introduces expectations, potential conflict, and long-term implications. For many men, especially those who value emotional control, this uncertainty feels destabilizing. He may worry about timing, circumstances, or whether he can meet perceived expectations. These thoughts delay action, even when desire is strong. Another layer of conflict comes from identity. He may see himself as the friend, the safe one, or the steady presence. Shifting into a romantic role challenges how he perceives himself in your life. He questions whether changing the dynamic will enhance the connection or destroy it. This internal debate can keep him emotionally quiet while his feelings continue to grow. The longer this conflict lasts, the stronger the emotional bond often becomes. Suppressed feelings don't disappear, they intensify. The effort to maintain emotional distance requires constant awareness, which keeps you mentally present. This is why men in this stage often think about you more than they admit. Resistance creates fixation. The conflict reaches a tipping point. The emotional cost of silence becomes greater than the risk of honesty. At that moment, avoidance no longer feels protective, it feels painful. This is when friendship can no longer contain what he feels. Understanding this internal struggle is crucial, because hesitation is not a lack of feeling, it is often evidence of depth. When a man resists his emotions in this way, it's because the connection already holds real emotional weight. The decision point is the moment when all the internal shifts, behavioral cues, and emotional conflicts converge to clarity. For a man, it's not a slow, drawn-out realization, it's a moment of quiet certainty, often surprising even to him. Up until this point, He may have wrestled with his feelings, questioned the risks, or tried to maintain the status quo. But eventually, he reaches a tipping point where staying, just friends, no longer feels sufficient. He begins to see that the friendship, as it exists, cannot satisfy the depth of his emotions, and he has to make a choice. This decision is rarely rational. It is emotional, instinctive, and rooted in the subconscious evaluation of what truly matters to him. He weighs comfort against desire, familiarity against the fear of loss, and realizes that the potential reward of love outweighs the risk of disruption. The clarity comes in a quiet, internal acknowledgement. He cannot unsee your significance, and he cannot ignore the feelings that have grown in his heart. At this stage, you notice a subtle shift in the way he treats you. He becomes more intentional in his actions. Small gestures that were once casual now carry weight. He listens with more focus, responds with thoughtfulness, and prioritizes your needs alongside his own. There's a conscious effort to protect the emotional connection while subtly signaling that the dynamic is changing. This is the behavioral manifestation of his internal decision. He's choosing courage over comfort, presence over detachment. Another aspect of the decision point is commitment to emotional honesty. Even if it's not yet verbalized, he may test boundaries, initiate deeper conversations, or share vulnerabilities he previously held back. These behaviors indicate that he's preparing to cross the threshold from friendship to love. The decision to pursue something more is often accompanied by heightened awareness of your reactions. He watches how you respond to emotional intimacy, noticing whether you reciprocate, hesitate, or engage fully. Every interaction becomes a signal that guides his next step. Timing also becomes critical at this juncture. He begins to recognize the right moment to act, when circumstances are favorable, when the emotional environment feels safe, and when he feels prepared to accept the consequences. This is why men often appear patient, even seemingly hesitant during this phase. Patience is not disinterest, it's strategic readiness. He wants to ensure that when he chooses to express his feelings, it's done with clarity, authenticity, and impact. This decision point is irreversible in its effect on the emotional bond. Once he chooses to move from friendship toward love, the dynamic cannot return to its previous neutral state. He now views you through a lens of significance that colors every interaction, every thought, and every emotional response. His priorities, attentions, and affections shift in subtle but permanent ways. Even if circumstances delay overt expression, the internal alignment has occurred. The decision point demonstrates that emotional investment is active, not passive. Love is not a passive state of liking someone. It is an active commitment of attention, care, and emotional energy. By choosing to cross the threshold, he affirms that you matter enough to risk vulnerability, disruption, and change. This is the moment where friendship transforms from comfort to connection with potential, where every choice thereafter is guided by the acknowledgement that what he feels is too valuable to ignore. The journey from friendship to love is less about sudden declarations and more about a series of subtle shifts that reveal what has quietly grown beneath the surface. It starts with emotional comfort becoming emotional dependence, continues through behavioral cues and internal conflict, and culminates in a decisive moment where he can no longer ignore what he feels. By the time he chooses courage over comfort, he's already crossed the line in his heart. He sees your significance, values your presence, and prioritizes your connection in ways that friendship alone never demanded. The conclusion is simple but profound. When friendship turns into love for him, it isn't accidental. It is the result of consistent emotional investment, unspoken vulnerability, and the realization that losing you would cost more than any risk love might bring. At that moment, he no longer views you as just a friend. He sees you as essential, irreplaceable, and worth the leap. Love, in this context, is the natural evolution of connection, and once it arrives, there is no turning back.